Okay, is that up now, Maddie?
That's perfect. We can see it.
Okay. Okay, so as Maddie said, my name is Nick Unis, and I'm the CEO and founder of UnisBrands, and we create fully sustainable 3D printed footwear from start to finish. A little bit about me. I actually started at Penn State Altoona. I did the 2 and 2. I'm a finance and accounting major in the Masters of Accounting program in SMEAL here at University Park. I've always had a passion for footwear and technology, and I'm originally from the Pittsburgh area. A little bit of our company evolution. So I started back in 2013, essentially reselling footwear like Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, essentially whatever sold at the time. And these weren't just your standard pieces of footwear. This was limited run versions of these shoes. And we'd get anywhere from the start from $200 to $2,000, depending on the model of the shoe and how limited it was. Now, as this kind of market grew, more people got into the market, not as much money to be made, so I decided I wanted to be able to diversify myself from that. And that led me to custom footwear, where I would completely rip the shoe apart, do custom material swaps, painted the shoe, essentially whatever the customer would really want. We had athletes send in their shoes. I'd add their logo, their number, pretty much whatever color graphic design they'd want. And we did one shoe with a rapper named Riff Raff, and 24 to 72 hours after we put that shoe on eBay, it hit a little over $1 million, and we got a cease and desist order from Nike. And that's kind of where I decided that I wanted to be able to do this full time and be able to really pursue that option of being able to create our own footwear and not potentially get sued for it. And that's where I began the route of using 3D technology to really push forward and be able to make my own piece of footwear. And I'll talk a little bit more about the future and what we plan to do as far as sustainability and how that really affects our company as a whole. So we started a Kickstarter in 2018. We launched, I want to say around September. And it was a 30-day campaign, and within those 30 days, we were able to hit our funding goal of $30,000, and we actually exceeded it a little bit. And we launched those shoes and that footwear line with just a 1-strap and a 2-strap sandal. And this was a little bit before we started our real big push for sustainability. We always had the sustainability background of being able to actually recycle the shoe when you're done with it, but we weren't quite to the point where we could actually take the shoe and then completely break it down and reuse the materials. We were still testing with that. So the main focus of our company is to create the most comfortable and eco-friendly footwear using 3D print or 3D technology in general. We were able to combine both the technologies of 3D printing as well as 3D knitting. And we had such a barrier starting with just 3D printing. And being able to combine both these technologies allows us to have a well-fit, comfortable shoe that is also durable. As opposed to just using 3D printing technology, we were struggling to create an upper for the shoe. And adding the 3D knitting allowed us to fully incorporate the sustainability as well as make a fully comfortable piece of footwear. And I'll talk a little bit more about how we then use and implement sustainability into our 3D knitting and 3D printing a little bit later in the talk. So how, essentially, the easiest way I've come to explain how a 3D printer works is a glorified hot glue gun. Essentially, the nozzle of the printer heats up. It pushes a strand of plastic through that nozzle, lays one layer, lifts up ever so slightly, lays another layer, and continues that process until you have a complete 3D printed object. 3D knitting works very similarly, where it knits one layer of material, then lifts up ever so slightly, knits another layer, and continues that process until you have a complete object as well. And one of the really cool aspects of this tying into sustainability is the zero waste. So you don't actually waste any material, as opposed to if we made footwear the traditional way, where we'd be cutting patterns out of leather, where you would have strands going around your cut pattern. that we wouldn't be able to actually go ahead and reuse and repurpose. And the footwear industry is notorious for wasting a ridiculous amount of material that can't be repurposed and ends up in the trash in a landfill somewhere. So a little bit about the printer. When I started UnisBrands in 2015, we could not find a 3D printer on the market that could actually print at a high consistency and quality. So I went on to online forums, I went throughout the internet and was able to create my own plans for a 3D printer that printed at a high consistency and quality in a flexible filament, because there are quite the many challenges to printing flexible filament, such as the extruder jamming, getting right consistencies, it not over oozing. Just getting a high quality product was quite a struggle, and it took us about 2 to 3 years to actually work out all the bugs of the printer. And we're constantly, even now, updating the printer and adding different features that I feel are necessary as we're scaling. So we do have a patent pending process. Currently, the customer can send in their 4 dimensions of fit. The customer can then choose their model of footwear. We then 3D print and resize the footwear to that customer's size. We then clean it and then ship it to you. Now, we don't currently offer on our website the custom sizing anymore. We will be bringing that back later. We only offer standard sizes such as 8, 8.5, 9, 9.5, 10, both in male and female. But we're hoping that as we really grow and bring this down, we'll be able to revert back to the 4 dimensions of fit model. So talking a little bit about the sustainability aspect of our footwear, our uppers are crafted from 100% recycled plastic water bottles. And how essentially we're able to do that is we take the water bottle, we're able to completely grind that water bottle down into little granules. From the granules, you're able to then heat it and extrude it into a thread material. From that thread material, we can feed that directly into the 3D knitting machine. And then you can actually 3D knit essentially whatever type of upper as well as color combination that you would like. And we're even experimenting right now with different textures. So you can work to get almost an alligator skin type texture on the shoe without the effects of actually having to go out and get alligator skin or get something that you really wouldn't be able to recycle after it's done. One of the other cool things is our FlexWear technology, which is our filament that we're using right now, as well as a combination of the FFL profile and the G-code slicing that we use. So we're essentially able to add comfort and support where we believe it's necessary in the midsole of the footwear. And with a traditional manufacturing way of footwear using injection molding, you wouldn't be able to achieve that any other way other than 3D printing. So we're able to actually design the internal structure of the midsole so that depending on where you're stepping and how you're stepping, you have more comfort as well as support for the midsole. And one of the really cool things about this material we're using is it's a thermoplastic, so it is 100% recyclable. And we are working, or we were working anyway before the virus, with 2 Penn State teams, one at Penn State Altoona, led by Sarah Rosellis, and the other up at University Park, led by a team of about 3 engineers, to actually have a complete recycling device so that we can do this in-house. Where once you're done wearing the shoes, you can send them back to us. We'll completely be able to rip the shoe apart, reuse those materials for a future pair of shoes, and you get a discount off of your future purchase. So another really cool aspect of our footwear is our packaging. We don't package our footwear in cardboard boxes. We believe that to be very wasteful. So we've gone ahead and packaged our footwear in branded duffel bags. So it's something you can then use and reuse once you're done with your footwear, and you can kind of take it to the gym, take it for overnight, and that kind of aspect. So it's something you're going to get continuous use out of. And this right now we're working to source this to be 100% sustainable, where it's made of the recycled plastic bottles as well. So we currently operate on the 3 major social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, with Instagram being our leading source of content. You can give us a follow at UnisBrands. Shameless plug. So who we're exactly targeting is the Gen Z age group. So it would be anywhere from the 18 to about 35. Those really looking as the early adopters, primarily targeting social media. So we do a lot of our ad campaigns on Instagram, and then we push those out to Facebook. And we don't, surprisingly, we don't use the sustainability push as much as the technological push. So more people are interested in the technology before they're interested, or even really kind of catch wind of the sustainability. And once they see that we're using sustainable practices within our business, that really kind of boosts their input on our brand, which is very positive. So we do currently have a team, and I'm here at the UnisBrands headquarters in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. On the left of the screen, we have our brand demon marketing team. And essentially what they do is they cover all aspects of our marketing as well as PR. So when we have companies contact us to work with us, it essentially all works through them, as well as we're currently in the process of rebuilding the back end as well as some new front end portions of our website, and they'll coordinate all aspects of that. As well as the team on the right is a kind of a ragtag team of my friends that will essentially work with us in any way that we need, as far as assembly to designing small parts for the shoes. And Sarah's actually in that picture, and she's working on the recycling device for the footwear. So that's a little bit about our team. A lot of them on the right are either Penn State students or Penn State graduates. So we do source a lot of our team from Penn State, and kind of that aspect. And we do have current workers, or at least not right now, but we do normally have workers here at the facility that work on either updating the printers, assembly, that are also Penn State and college level students. So we have been featured through Invent Penn State, PBS, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Altoona Mirror, WPXI, and Yahoo Finance. And we did have a recent YouTube series called My Hustle with a brand called Whistle. So you can go check that video out if you want a little bit more information about UnisBrands. So our current product line, we have our footwear at the headliner. We used to have t-shirts, hats, and bow ties. I currently discontinued those lines until we can find a sustainable source of material for each product. We are working vigorously to kind of figure that out and to figure out how we can implement sustainable materials into those products, such as using water bottles again for the t-shirts and the hats, and then only using recycled footwear for the bow ties. So a little bit about the future. We recently were at New York Fashion Week, and it was a huge opportunity as well as honor to be there. And that's where we debuted our signature line of footwear, which is the Yin and Yang collection, which you can currently purchase on our website. And we did have a pop-up shop at New York Fashion Week where people could actually come try the shoes on, give them a test walk, see how they really feel. Because one of the big things with using recycled plastic water bottles and using a 3D printer is people think that the shoe is going to be rock hard. It's not going to be something comfortable that you really want to wear. So that kind of really helped break the stereotype. And we got a lot of good feedback on what people actually felt when they tried the shoes on. And we've even made some changes from the shoes that people were trying on there to what people were actually going to be receiving before we initially ship out. That way we can kind of have the best product push out. And this is we did a all white as well as an all black version of the shoe for Yin and Yang. And this really kind of was brought out as far as an idea for me to kind of bring balance to the footwear industry. as there's a ton of waste, and there's really not too many companies really pushing with the new technology as well as the sustainability aspect of it. And this is just another close-up shot of one of the pairs that you would be able to try on at the New York Fashion Week. And you can kind of see the upper is completely 3D knit, and that's using the recycled plastic water bottles, where the midsole is a 3D printed midsole, and that's how we're able to kind of control the comfort level. Another interesting fact about our footwear is we don't use insoles in our shoes. So we're able to design the comfort of an insole into that midsole, so we don't have to have, again, the waste material that would go into cutting out the insole, or using something toxic like an EVA foam for the midsole, something that we couldn't recycle down. As well as the outsole is a natural gum rubber, which we can then break down and reuse for other footwear once you're done. So we do have a couple upcoming collabs. We're still in contact with a person at Lacoste, so we're hoping that we can kind of reach out and work with them. It's kind of an ongoing thing. We do have a couple other production companies we're working with. I can't name too many names as far as who we would be working with there. And we do have an Amazon Prime Video fashion sustainability show that will be coming out, and that was done through New York Fashion Week, which was really exciting. So we'll be looking on the lookout for kind of when those videos kind of pop out. And again, we had another video through YouTube. My Hustle is what it was called. You guys can go ahead and check that out as well. So a little bit about the R&D that we are working with. So Sarah's team is leading this actual design right now, which is a automated shredder and recycling device. So what it does is it actually breaks down the shoe to little granules, and then it sorts it by color. So that'll be a tremendous help for recycling in our facility, as opposed to having to send stuff out to get recycled, where we can do it all here. Another team that was up at University Park was focusing on the actual extrusion process. So that is then taking the granules from this that this device creates, remelting them and respooling them either at a diameter that can go through the 3D printer, or a diameter that can then be put through the 3D knitter. So that's something that we're always constantly pushing is what are we doing in the future, and how can we kind of put this all under one roof. So now I'd like to open it up to any questions and or comments that you may have.
Awesome. So if people want to send questions via chat, or if you use the raise the hand function, I can go ahead and unmute you and show your video, so you can ask it directly to Nick. So one question that we have is, how did you get started with this? Like, what was your initial inspiration?
Initial inspiration for just the footwear brand in general?
Yeah.
I think the biggest drive for the footwear brand is my interest in footwear, as well as technology, and being able to kind of combine both of those aspects together. As there's not really any footwear brands in the US or even the world right now that are combining both 3D printing, 3D knitting, as well as sustainability together.
Okay, awesome. One other question that we have is, what is the current price point of each of the shoes, and how do you see it changing as production increases?
Okay, so the current price point for our Yin and Yang collection is $119. Now, if you're in the US, that includes free shipping. If you're outside of the US, we just tack on whatever the additional shipping charge would be. And as we scale and move forward with the business, we see that number kind of going down and down. We're hoping to get it under the $100 mark, and hopefully in the coming 5 years. But that, again, that takes time with scaling and being able to kind of go ahead and go to our direct material manufacturers and being able to say, okay, we have this demand, we need this amount of material. Can you do any better on the pricing? And we've done that over time. So when I first started, for instance, the material that we're using for our footwear, at least for the midsoles of our footwear, we've already been able to kind of cut that price in half from when we first started.
Awesome. Another question that we have is, can you please talk more about the 3D knitter? Do you use an off-the-shelf product or do you design one as well?
So we don't have a 3D knitter design currently. That is something that we're hoping to be able to kind of do in the far future. And we currently outsource that version of it right now.
Perfect. Another question is, it seems like you guys found an interesting niche at the intersection of streetwear, fashion, and sustainability. How much do you expect that market to grow in the next few years?
Well, we expect that to grow significantly, is that we see that as being kind of one of our core aspects of business. And one of the really cool things about 3D printing and 3D knitting is it's so customizable. So we will be actually working, hopefully this coming week, with Whistle, which is the YouTube channel that we did, to do a giveaway where we could potentially take their logo, throw that on the shoe, and do a collaboration with them. So it's very easy to kind of collaborate without wasting material, as well as kind of inputs, because the typical, I guess, way that you would make a shoe is it takes typically about 6 months to produce a piece of footwear, and that's going back and forth between here and China as far as designing the footwear, sending that over to a manufacturer overseas, having them then make a prototype, send that back over to you, and then have them make tooling in different machines to actually produce the different portions of the footwear before they can actually send you a test sample back. And it's just a long process where we can essentially have a shoe overnight designed and printed, which is something that's really cool and kind of pushing the edge of the technology.
Awesome, thank you. So this person said, thanks for zooming in. How do you think that Penn State can encourage more students to become sustainable entrepreneurs?
One of the big things that Penn State is pushing right now is their Launchbox program, which is through their Penn State Invent Penn State initiative. And they're actually in the process of building a complete new facility that I want to say is about 1 block or 2 blocks from Fraser Street. And this new facility is going to have the cutting edge technology that you can actually, as a student, go in there and say, hey, I want to start a business, and they'll have different prototyping facilities for you to go ahead and actually take your idea from just an idea to something that actually physically feel and touch and prototype, and eventually work that to a finished product, as well as Penn State and sustainability really helps as far as, like, if you're a student and you need help, there is someone that will reach out and help you. Even if the person that you reached out to initially can't directly help you, I'm pretty positive that they're able to find someone or connect you with someone in the Penn State network to actually get you go ahead and moving.
Another question that we have is, what would mass production of 3D printed sustainable shoes look like?
So as far as the modeling of mass production, we don't see it as being the traditional mass production, because our business model is quite different from those of our competitors like Nike, Adidas, and Under Armour, where they contract out overseas to have a version of their shoe made, and they'll, let's say, order 20,000 pairs of that particular shoe, where we don't actually start producing your footwear until you actually order it. So ours is more of a made-to-order basis, and how we see that as a scalable business is we're able to open up manufacturing hubs like the one that I'm currently sitting in, maybe having one at the East Coast, one in the center of the US, as well as one maybe on the West Coast in LA, where those hubs actually will control the production for that area. So as opposed to shipping it all and making it all in one place and then having to ship it all across the US, actually making it locally and being able to then go ahead and hire locally and having the labor force local, as well as not having the waste of, okay, if we don't sell, say we make 1,000 pairs of shoes and we don't sell 100 size 9s, well, then what do we do with that material as well as the footwear that we have that we can't sell? Well, we've kind of changed that paradigm where we're not actually producing anything until you actually order it. So that's essentially how we would plan to attack that.
Awesome. So you said that you're in your facility right now. Do you mind showing us kind of what's going on around you?
Yes, I can give you a little tour. Um, so we do have our office and facility split into two parts. The first portion is our office administration, as well as the second part, which is our complete manufacturing facility, which is what was actually sitting behind me. And right now we have about 20 3D printers, and we are actually in the process, you can see up here on this top shelf, of assembling another 10 of these 3D printers just to kind of push our operating bounds right now. Another cool aspect of our footwear, which I didn't really touch too much on in the video, is how our footwear is actually shipped to you. So we ship our footwear in a recycled cardboard tube that you can then go ahead and resend back to us. And we provide the label for that piece of footwear as well. So once you're done wearing your shoes, you're actually able to send them back to us on us, and you'll get a discount off of your future purchase, as well as be able to fully kind of close the supply chain loop where you're able to we're able to actually break that shoe down and reuse that for other shoes, and then you get a discount off of your future purchase.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that little tour.
No, yeah.
So another question that we have is, have you considered making shoes for people needing orthotics? Do you work with podiatrists in designing your shoes?
When I first started kind of brainstorming a business plan, our original target market was actually casual orthopedic. So it was targeting those that had foot issues and foot deformities, where we'd actually be able to scan your foot and then design the shoe completely around that scan. And we moved away from that model mainly because of the time constraint and having to have someone physically come in and spend about a half an hour with you to kind of break that down, as well as the time it takes to then go ahead and make the shoe completely around that person's foot. Now, we did work with a kid out in Texas. He actually had a extreme foot deformity where it was essentially almost like 2 tree trunks for his feet. And what I had him do was cast both his left and right foot, send me those rubber casts of his feet. I was able to then scan that into the computer and design the shoe completely around his foot, which he never really had the opportunity to before. So that was kind of a really cool thing to do. Now, one of the main reasons, again, that we're not really pushing that as our core business model is the amount of time it took. It took me about 40 hours to successfully be able to do that. And from a business standpoint, it's not scalable, at least at this point. It's maybe a service line that we would offer later.
Awesome. Thank you. That's really cool. So another question that we have is, you said that Gen Z was more attracted by the technology side than the sustainability side. Did that surprise you? Are there other ways you could think of attracting a broader market via the sustainability components of this? And is there interest in sustainability components in other shoe designers?
There are a couple other companies that are trying to be sustainable. The problem is they're picking and choosing what parts of the shoe that can actually be sustainable. So a lot of the companies right now that are doing it can only make either a portion of the upper or just the upper in general sustainable, where they really can't or don't understand how to use sustainable materials and being able to kind of combine both 3D printing and 3D knitting. So I know Adidas does have a program right now where they are using 3D printers, and it's their Carbon series, which is one of the companies they've partnered with, which is Carbon 3D. And their 3D printing process is a little bit different than ours. They use light synthesis technology to kind of make their soles. And one of the big problems with that is it's a light curing device. So once it cures that chemical into a hard substance, you can't recycle or undo that chemical reaction. So it's not recyclable. So they're kind of getting the aspects of the technology, but they're losing the recyclability there. So they're kind of picking and choosing what exactly they want to do, where we're trying to kind of really combine all the aspects of it. And as far as that was actually surprising to us that the technology was really kind of attracting the attention of the Gen Z as opposed to the sustainability. However, the I would say it's about 60-40 as far as the interest in technology to sustainability. So the sustainability interest is still very high. We just were surprised to see that people were really reacting to the, technology first as opposed to the sustainability. And that once they saw the technology and saw that we were doing it in a sustainable manner, that they were really kind of hooked on what we were doing.
Perfect. Do you plan to have more sandal designs, like a Birkenstock style?
We did have a Birkenstock style. We recently discontinued that model. And we discontinued the sandals as soon as we launched our Yin and Yang collection. I don't know when we would be repositioning the sandals. We'd more or less be probably pushing with another sneaker. But again, things change, and if we have the correct influencer that really wants to push sandals and really believes in the sandal, we may be kind of circling back to that. But as of now, we don't have any current plans to push forward with a new sandal or even bring back the old either two-strap Birkenstock style or the single strap.
Awesome. And kind of going off that, do you have like plans in the future to ever go outside of like sneakers or sandals, like boots or any other footwear?
We did I do have a couple of designs in my archives for heels. I haven't pushed forward with that because we would like to be able to make a comfortable heel as well. But I focused a lot of energy and time into the sneaker and making it at the highest quality and consistency, so that people are very happy with what they're receiving, and if not a higher quality than what you would get at, let's say, a Champs or a Foot Locker. So that's something that we're really trying to kind of push the boundaries of the quality of our footwear. So I'm really focusing on that right now, as opposed to kind of breaking off into other kind of footwear designs and markets. Now, once we really get this down to a science, it'll be very easy to kind of expand into different, I guess, footwear sectors, like having heels, having boots, and that kind of aspect of it.
Wonderful. Another question that we have is, are internships available for PSU undergrads?
They are available. So you can actually, if you are interested in potentially interning with us, you can actually reach out on our website, and you can go to either our direct chat, which we have on our website, or you can just send in a support line. And in that support line, just give us your name and your email, and then we can reach back out to you and essentially ask you to send us your resume. And one of the really cool things about us being a technology company as well as kind of a manufacturer is, if you're not in the local area, that's okay. A lot of our content is done virtually, so you could actually send in content and you can work remotely, which is really a really cool opportunity. So don't get discouraged if you're not in the Pittsburgh area. We're always looking for talent. So yeah, send in your applications.
And that's perfect for a time like now, with everyone having to be remote anyways, so that's awesome. Another question that we have is, what is the technical skill set necessary for your labor force?
We've really tried and focused to get the labor as minimal as possible, as well as simple as possible. So we, at the very start, when we were pushing out for the Kickstarter, we had high school workers here. So essentially, you really have to have almost no to little skill to actually kind of assemble the footwear. Now, some of the more technical aspects, like programming the printer or even assembly for the printers, that takes a little bit more skill, but still we could have college level, and I believe even high school level students doing that with the proper technique and learning.
Wonderful. So what does an average day look like for you?
I don't know that we really have much of an average day here, as everything's constantly changing and updating, and we get opportunities kind of at whim. So we recently did a magazine article with Tatler. So that's something we've been focusing on for the past, anyway, 2 weeks. And that's, I believe, British's oldest running magazine. I want to say it's around 300 years old. And we've been preparing content for them to kind of push out, as well as imagery and text for them. So that's been kind of our big push, as well as with COVID-19, we've been having a lot of issues with supplying materials, and our supply chain has been crippled. So we've been constantly trying to source material. So yesterday I drove out actually to Pittsburgh to pick up sole material because we couldn't actually have them ship it to us because it would be another delay of about 2 weeks. So it's something that I had to actually go physically pick up just to kind of quicken the process. So it's kind of been crazy the past month or two. But other than that, it would just be kind of working on new designs, keeping the printers up and running, and creating content for social media.
Awesome. And kind of going off that question, how do you balance your schoolwork with running your own business?
Well, being a fifth-year senior, I would say that I'm more or less 1 foot out the door. So I'm more leaning on the business aspect right now of UnisBrands as opposed to school, but it was very difficult when I was kind of balancing both evenly. And I would say it's very difficult, but if it's something you really love, it's very, very possible to do.
Perfect. Another question that we have is, how did you get involved in the New York Fashion Week?
They actually reached out to us, and they requested that we come there and bring a pop-up shop. So, and they didn't give us too much time or notice beforehand. They gave us about 2 months. And this was before I really even had the incline to release our sneaker. So we got stuff moving very quickly, as well as we're able to design completely out a pop-up shop that was really cool and interactive for people to come and kind of check out, as well as they were able to purchase the shoes. So that's where we first offered the shoes for purchase. They could actually do it in person there.
Awesome. Another question that we have is, the main promise of 3D is that it allows printing anything, so you can get a lot of variety. Why have a single model or even having models at all?
So one of the things with giving people too many options, so initially I thought it would be a great idea to kind of just make a fully custom piece of footwear where you can actually change the midsole, the upper, and kind of design it the way you want. The problem with that is you end up confusing the customer, and if they don't know exactly what they want, they tend to not buy. So giving them a set model first, and then maybe later on easing them into being able to customize that, really opens them up to the idea of being able to kind of customize it. As well as we do have one printer that's currently set up here to repair all the other printers. As a lot of our printer parts are actually 3D printed themselves, and they break not too often, but enough that where we would need a printer actually set up to go ahead and repair the other ones. So yeah, I mean, we do use the printers for other aspects other than 3D printed footwear. But that's kind of our reasoning for why we have set models, as opposed to kind of just having it open source. And there are other companies that do open source, like 3D Hubs and Shapeways, where you can actually go on there and implement your 3D design, and you can choose whatever materials, and they'll 3D print it and ship it to you. But I would say that's more of a different business model than what we're trying to kind of push and pursue.
Wonderful. Another question that we have is, do you have plans to look into CLIP, continuous liquid interface production technology?
We don't currently, as we've invested a lot of time and energy into our current technology, as well as, if I'm understanding what the question is, Clip's very similar to what Adidas has done with their fusion and carbon technology. And one of the big drawbacks to that is it's not recyclable, as well as you're limited in the structures that you can actually design. where you wouldn't be able to design the structures that we actually use and be able to kind of add that comfort level as well as recyclability to it. So there are limitations with that in the materials you can choose right now. So we're more or less staying away from that and trying to keep with our own technology. And eventually, maybe we will move towards that. But for right now, I would say it's not in the cards.
Perfect. Does anyone else have any other questions, or did I miss anyone's question? I think I was able to go through and get it. Oh, have you considered 3D printed molds?
3D printed molds. Yes. The problem with 3D printed molds is the time constraints. So we're shooting to have our footwear shipped out about a week after the time that you order. If you do molds for the printing, you're actually then having to print much more than you would normally. So it's creating more material that you then have to recycle, as well as it doesn't really kind of get at what you're trying to accomplish as it would if you use the traditional mold making. So it just doesn't, again, it doesn't really fit with our business model, and it just takes a lot more time and would push our production schedule back significantly.
Perfect. Another question that we have is, how did you raise capital to launch the company, and are you taking investors?
So we're not actively seeking investors currently. Now that doesn't necessarily mean we wouldn't be open to hear, depending on the person, what they had to say. We'd more or less be looking for connections at this point, as opposed to capital. And we spent about the past 3 years raising capital, and we currently have 4 investors. And it's just essentially going up to these individuals and pitching them a slide deck of what we plan to do, how we envision the company, and some of the trade secrets and aspects that we have that would kind of really razzle and dazzle the investor.
Perfect. And what is your 5-year goal?
Our 5-year goal would really more or less just to expand our current facility, push out more designs, more cutting edge designs, and potentially work with some of the bigger brands on social media, whether it's a big YouTube influencer, an Instagram influencer, and really kind of being able to combine our brand with their brand, and just give us more of a notoriety and kind of really push the sustainability aspect of what we're doing, as well as the technology.
Wonderful. Do you have any like influencers in mind? Like, what is your goal influencer?
We do have a list right now of who we're trying to get. I'd rather not share that.
That's completely fine.
Just because I don't know if that would impact who we're trying to get. But I mean, we do have a list of who we're currently and actively trying to get. Now, will we succeed in getting these people? I don't know, as a lot of these people are very difficult to get a hold of and to get in contact with, as well as the stipulations to actually working with them. So that's something we're always actively pursuing and actively changing and morphing our list. But yeah, we do have a list, and we're actively trying to get people involved.
Nice. And kind of going off that, what is that process like of even obtaining an influencer?
It's very time consuming, and a lot of the times leads to nothing. And a lot of emails that I send out that end up just either being completely disregarded or ends up in their spam folder. Excuse me, but it's just a long process of actually getting in contact with the influencer. And then once you get in contact with the influencer, then going through and negotiating something that would work out and you both are happy with. Because you may get to the very final stage of negotiating with that influencer, and they're not willing to move on one aspect, on something that you can't move on. So the whole deal ends up falling through over one minor detail. So again, it's very tedious and it's very time consuming, and at times can be expensive depending on who you're working with. Some influencers want a fee right from the gate. some influencers are willing to kind of do a profit sharing model. And more or less, that's kind of what we're pushing, is the profit sharing model, as opposed to going through and just paying them this lump sum of money to start to see if they can even sell a shoe. So we do have a training wheels kind of protocol that we're running right now, where we're finding an influencer, taking a version of the yin and yang, modifying it, adding their logo, adding their colors, graphics, whatever they'd like to kind of add to that, and then seeing if they can, doing kind of a test of market to see if they can sell 200 pairs of their version of the shoe. And if they can prove that they can sell 200 pairs and they have the audience to do that, we'll go ahead and completely redesign the shoe however they'd like and go ahead and push forward with that model.
That's awesome. Very cool. So it looks like that's all the questions that we have coming through the chat. But Nick can stay after for a few minutes. So if anyone has personal questions that they want to ask him, or just want to make some contacts and network, feel free to do that. But with that being said, thank you so much, Nick, for coming virtually today, and sharing about your company, as well as everyone for tuning in today. There's a bunch of thank yous coming in the chat right now. But with that being said, next Friday, we have Dan Benna, who is the former Sustainable Development Director for PepsiCo. So he's talking about corporations and how they're handling sustainability. So feel free to tune in there. But otherwise, hang out with Nick for a few minutes and chat with him. Thank you.
Hey, thank you again for having me as well.
Of course.